presentation today. I want to talk with you about, as we get ready for Easter, we're approaching Easter. I want to talk to you about the resurrection journey. I want to inform you today that the resurrection journey is a 3-day trip from death to life. It is a 3-day trip from death to life. And when I say a 3-day trip, I mean a trip that starts out on Friday and ends up on Sunday. Are you with me? And today we will be looking in the book primarily of Luke, beginning in the 22nd chapter, and we'll be working at different points all the way to the 24th chapter. We won't read every verse. We simply do not have the time to do that. But we will be taking this resurrection journey with the disciples who started out with Jesus at the foot of Calvary's cross. In our religious training and experiences, we've seen many pictures of the disciples standing at the foot of the cross, and everybody was composed, and it seemed like they were mildly disturbed by what was going on. But how many of you know that it was a devastating experience for the disciples? How many of you know that they were beside themselves in fear and frustration and anxiety and anticipation? They were trying to figure out what was going on. I want to talk about the fact that every resurrection is preceded by a death. And when I use this term death today, folks, what I'm talking about is a literal death in some cases. I'm talking about a death spiritually. I'm talking about a death of a dream. I'm talking about a death of a relationship. I'm talking about a death of a business, a death of a job. I'm talking about a spectacular, substantial, unwelcome, unanticipated loss. Anyone here ever had such an experience? You see, because you've got to recognize that when Jesus was on Calvary, when he was stretched out, that is what that represented to the disciples. It wasn't just a mild inconvenience. It wasn't just what's going on here. It was horrible. It was an unspeakable horror. And we need to get inside the stories sometimes when we read them. We need to park psychologically and look at what was going on and try to interject ourselves into this situation and ask ourselves this question: if that was me, how would I be feeling? If that was my friend, if that was my brother, if that was my sister, if that was my mother, if that was my neighbor, how would I be feeling in that moment? See, Jesus on the cross, he can't be a distant, mystical, historical figure to you. As long as the Bible is a historical piece of literature, you will never receive the total benefit that is there for you to receive. Do you all understand what I'm saying? So when we talk about this trip, this 3-day trip from death to life, I want you to think about that phenomenal, spectacular, substantial, unwelcome, unanticipated loss that you had. And the question is this, of course, that I'm dealing with: how do we get from Friday to Sunday? I'm going to suggest to you early on that we want to get to Sunday. Because when Sunday comes, we're going to be able to shout the victory. We're going to be able to lay down our burdens and a few other things, but I won't get ahead of myself. But there's a process. And let's now then begin by looking at Luke chapter 23, verses 27 and 28. And what we're going to see here is some human experiences to death. or rather some human responses to death. And I'll give you some time to get over there. You see, there were people who were a part of Jesus' entourage, who ate with him, who slept in the same place that he slept, who had extended conversations that are not necessarily recorded in the scriptures, who had relationship with him. They were friends of his. They were associates. They were close acquaintances with. And they were following him throughout his life, even when he was to be crucified. And even after he had been crucified, can you imagine, mothers, your only baby, that son, your only son, that one that you had waited so long for? Can you imagine him on the cross, gasping for air, with these gigantic nails driven in his hands and a stake driven through his feet, and he's standing there? And the agony of the cross was that it positioned you so that you had to struggle for your every breath. Can you imagine watching someone that you love there with the life slowly draining out of him or her? And what is the response when we have these spectacular, unwelcome, unanticipated losses? Well, the first thing that normally happens is that we react. And that's a word. I'm going to give you a series of words that begin with the letter R so that you can remember. The first thing that we do, of course, to death is that we react, right? And normally we react in the way that these ladies did, verse 27, and there followed him a great company of people, of women, which also bewailed and lamented. And what does that word bewailed mean? Sniffling? What is wailing? Is hollering, right? Screaming. Anybody ever been there? If you love something and you lost it, and especially if you lost someone or something, and it was just so sudden, and you had in your mind that you were going to be spending a lot of time with this person, and you're going to be spending a lot of time with this thing, you just knew it. And all of a sudden, boom, it's not there anymore. Boom, they're not there anymore. What is the response? Weeping, wailing, lamenting. That's what happens on Friday, folks. We weep, and we lament, we wail on Friday. And if you would back up with me to verse 22, chapter 22, verse 50 and 51, I want to give you another one of those human responses when we feel like someone is trying to take away someone that we love, someone that we value, something that we value. If it's a job and you've been told that you might be laid off, if it's your husband and he's telling you that he's leaving you, if it's your wife and she's saying, I'm out of here, if it's your child and they're saying, I don't love you anymore, I hate you. Sometimes when we suffer these losses, are you over there? Verse 22. When they came to get Jesus, and everybody knew what, as we say in the South, what time it was. Everybody knew what was about to happen. When they came with the guards to get Jesus, one of the disciples, what did he do here? And one of them smote the servant high priest and cut off his right ear. Sometimes we demonstrate resentment. That's another R. We lash out when tragic things happen to us, when things and people that we love, people that we are depending upon, people that we're counting on, we get afraid and we lash out.